into this.
It is, but now it's, we're getting so much better service than what it used to be. You already signed it off, so he's,
Yeah,
nobody else. Well, somebody for the second rezone.
What's that?
sounds good.
I think we have one person in the audience for the other rezone.
Okay.
Well, don't underestimate town people either.
I don't.
I might not have a vote, but I have a voice.
If you're looking for a job.
You have both, yes.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Nice to put a picture.
Being that it's 3 o'clock, we're going to call the May 31st Environmental
This
Resources
meeting is
Committee to
being
order.
recorded.
We will begin with item number 2, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to public comment. I'm going to go through the list here. Firstly, I have a Bill Shrubba, and I want to be clear with how this is indicated on the sheet. You did sign up, but I believe you do not wish to speak. Okay, I saw that that was circled up top in the column. I just wanted to confirm that. Okay. Next up, we have Nancy Stensel, and you have indicated that you wish to speak. Given that we have a handful of speakers here and we have the 15-minute max, I'm going to put a cap on the time at 3 minutes for this month. So whenever you wish to speak, I believe the mic is up here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to say that I have emailed you several times, so my name should be quite familiar to you. Very disappointed that I've only heard back from one of you. I have looked at many of the prior drilling reports in this state, and I am asking, I certainly hope you have as well, going forward with this test drilling. And I can only hope that you pay very, very close attention to these, because they're full of inconsistencies from the last one that was done in 2020 at the Shepke site. To put it in layman's terms, what we had found was basically they tried to use a 2-inch drill bit in a 1-inch casing. And there's questions that I would like answered going forward, like, can you explain to me how a casing is even driven into a rock formation? Because I truly feel that water is life. And will you be paying attention to what depth they'll be hitting groundwater? And what about the nearby wells and the streams? You've got class 1 and 2 trout streams out there, and when drilling fluids and sulfuric combine, it makes cancer-causing hazardous waste. What would be the plans going forward with this? Do you know what's in the drilling fluids? I know a lot of them. I have read the data sheets on them. And as a concerned citizen, I feel that we have the right to answers on this and so much more before any drilling, any proposed drilling is done. And there really is no need to upset the environment for any type of gold that may be out there or may not. We have plenty of gold. And in my opinion, then there's really no need to drill. And what I would really like from this committee going forward is a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Matthew Leinbach, and appearing in interest of the rezone that's on the agenda today. I would just clarify that this is the spot on the agenda for general public comment. If you wish to testify and provide information during the rezone process, that would be further down the agenda. So I'm trying to find Matthew out there in the audience. Matthew, so if you wish to provide information during the public hearing, that would probably be more appropriate.
I will
Okay, that would probably be better for the public hearing. So you will get an opportunity. I just wanted to direct to where that would take place. Okay? Thank you. Next up, we have Daniel Barth wishing to speak of the drilling and strategic plan. And I believe he's joining us over phone. Daniel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you. I'm calling because I really believe that this committee is probably the most important committee in the county. And I'm looking right now at the strategic plan for the county, and I'm looking at the water resources goal that's part of that strategic plan. And it says that the water resources in Marathon County are the highest quality for the safety of residents and the health of aquatic ecosystems, and are protected from damaging behaviors like overuse and pollution. And I'd like to just, I know that you'll be talking about the strategic plan today, and I want to remind you of how important water is. As the previous caller mentioned, water is life, and we all know that. In reference to the possibility of a gold mine, sulfide mine in the eastern part of our county, I have great concerns about how we can both have what we know will be a polluting mine and protect our water quality at the same time. So that's, I guess, my primary comment. A secondary comment is I know that the state has limited our ability and your ability to do anything about this, and in my opinion, that is a major statewide political issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, I have two individuals signed up. I have Brian and Bethany. Did you each wish to address the committee? I'm looking for just one of us? Okay.
All right, I'm Bethany Brettel, and we live on Thornapple Creek Road, so property just adjacent to one of the drilling sites, and we're surrounded by possible drilling sites. And we live out there. We're greatly concerned about water possibly being contaminated. We have 5 young kids we're raising out there and a herd of beef, and I'm just concerned about our whole livelihood being destroyed out there if water was contaminated. I don't know. Guess that's why we're here. Yeah, we hope you can do what you can do to prevent that from happening. But.
Okay, thank you. That is everybody that I have for public comment. Moving on the agenda, we have item 4, approval of the April 5th, 2022 committee minutes. They're in your packet. Motion to approve would be in order. Or amend, of course. Motion by Supervisor Drabek, second by Supervisor Vensky. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Do we have any members of the committee joining electronically? No, thank you. All right, moving on to item 5, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, or resolution. A, public hearings, review possible actions and possible recommendations to the county board for its considerations, county zoning changes. 5A1, Tim Vreeland on behalf of Norbert Gooden, General Ag to Rural Residential, Town of Frankfurt. 5A2, Gavin Borkart on behalf of K&B Storage LLC, Light Industrial to Neighborhood Commercial, Town of McMillan. And 5A3, Matthew Leinbach, Rural Estate to Rural Residential, Town of Spencer. We are now going to open the public hearing for the proposed rezones in front of us today. I would ask that you all please mute your cell phones and other electronic devices. The Marathon County ERC is now meeting in public hearing on the location, plan, specifications, and purpose of the following projects. 5A1, 1 through 3. I would like to introduce the members of the committee. Myself, Supervisor Langenhan, Supervisor Alan Drabeck, Supervisor David Overbeck, Supervisor Rick Seefeld, Supervisor Mike Ritter, Supervisor Andrew Vensky, Supervisor Tony Shervinsky, Supervisor Kim Unger. We have Marilyn Bend, our Wisconsin Towns and Villages Association rep, and Rodney Roskopf, our FSA representative. Also present are Lori Miskimins, our Conservation Planning and Zoning Director, Shad Harvey, our Land Resource Manager, Kirsty Heidenreich, our County Conservationist, Peter Fromm Wade, our Land Use Specialist, Garrett Poggle, our Land Use Technician, and Nicole Delaunay, our Administrative Coordinator. The establishment of the ERC is required by law for purposes of administration of county ordinances and land conservation programs. This committee must follow state laws and local ordinances as written. This committee cannot change or ignore any part of the ordinances or state laws, but must apply the laws as written. The purpose of this committee is to hear and decide on proposed ordinances and ordinance revisions, rezoning petitions, and provide direction on land conservation and planning programs. The ERC will give a full and fair hearing to any person applying for a rezone petition. A taped recording is being made of the meeting, which will assist for preparation of written hearing minutes. The committee is interested in hearing all pertinent comments and questions. Each hearing will be opened by reading the public notice and allowing staff to present a staff report, including evidence from any on-site inspection. The applicant and anyone wishing to testify will be sworn in and allowed to give testimony. Witnesses will be called in the order of those first in favor, second opposed, and then third as interested may appear. The committee may ask questions of the zoning staff and applicant. It may be necessary that we set a reasonable time limit on individual statements on the overall length of the hearing. To promote orderly discussion, anyone wishing to present oral testimony or ask questions relating to the hearing should state your name and present your testimony or question so it becomes part of the official record. We request that you avoid repetition. Once the committee has all the necessary facts, the chairman will close the hearing, allowing no further testimony, and the committee will deliberate and decide for the public whether the applicant has met the standards in the ordinance. No additional testimony from the public is allowed during the deliberation. However, the committee may question staff for purposes of clarification. After a decision is made, the committee will proceed to the next hearing. The decisions made by the committee are a recommendation to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, who will take up the matter at a future county board meeting. Please contact staff for more information regarding this county board process. The committee will now hear the application of 5A1 Tim Vreeland on the behalf of Norbert Gooden, General Agriculture to Rural Residential, Town of Frankfurt. And we will begin with our staff report. Shad, I believe that's you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead, thank you.
Before I begin, I just want to let the committee know there have been some changes to this staff report after you guys received your copy. They're highlighted on the screen here. I'll go through them. There's just some new information that came after the packet was submitted. Norbert Gooden petition to rezone land staff report, May 31st, 2022, Environmental Resource Committee. Petitioner Tim Vreeland, 6103 Dawn Street, Weston, Wisconsin. Property owner Norbert Gooden, 224431 Butternut Road, Edgar, Wisconsin. Area proposed to be rezoned is in the town of Frankfurt, east of the intersection of Pine Nut Road and Huckleberry Road. Request the petition of Tim Vreeland on behalf of Norbert Gooden to amend Marathon County zoning ordinance to rezone lands from general agriculture to rural residential as described as part of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 14, Township 28 North, Range 3 East, Town of Frankfurt. The area proposed to be rezoned is described as Lot 1 on the preliminary survey map submitted with the rezone petition. Part of parent parcel PIN number 026-2803-142-0989. Public hearing meetings, Town of Frankfurt Town Board meeting, May 9th at 7 p.m. Marathon County Environmental Resource Committee, May 31st, today at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The existing zoning district is general agriculture. The existing general land use map, Town of Frankfurt, Comprehensive Plan 2018. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as agriculture on the town's comprehensive existing generalized land use map. Adjacent land uses are comprised of agriculture, woodlands, and residential. proposed zoning district is rural residential. The town's comprehensive future land use map, area to be proposed to be rezoned is shown as agriculture on the town's comprehensive future land use map. Adjacent lands are comprised of agriculture, woodland, residential, and outdoor recreation. The town of Frankfurt does not participate in farmland preservation zoning, therefore there's no parcels within the town zone farmland preservation. Here's just an aerial of the parcel. Town recommendation, the town of Frankfurt Town Board has not submitted an official resolution packet. However, they have indicated by email as well as meeting minutes, they have no issue with the proposed rezone. In front of you there's a packet that includes the draft meeting minutes along with the email. Conclusions of law, the rezone is Number one, the rezone is substantially consistent with the following plans. A, Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, B, Town Comprehensive Plan, and C, Marathon County Farmland Preservation Plan. The Marathon County Comprehensive Plan relies on the Town Comprehensive Plan regarding specific land use and zoning districts for individual parcels. The area proposed to be rezoned is to be designated as agriculture in the town's future land use map. Cpz staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations to the town board members and residents know the true purpose intent of the plan. The town has expressed no issue with the proposed rezone through email and meeting minutes. The area in question was not designated as farmland preservation. The town of Frankfurt does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. Number two, the location of the proposed development minimizes the amount of agricultural land converted and will not substantially impair or limit current or future agricultural use of protected farmland. 2 acres of farmland will be consumed with the rezone. The applicant has demonstrated that there is a need for the proposed development. Adequate public facilities are present or will be provided. Providing public facilities will not be unreasonable burden to the local government. The need for this is a proposed land division. All necessary public facilities are anticipated to be provided. Given any proposed development would rely on private systems such as private well and sanitary systems. No anticipated burden on local government. All applicable building construction and use standards will be applied during zoning and building permit review process. 4, the rezone will not cause unreasonable air, water pollution, soil erosion, or adverse effects on rare, irreplaceable natural areas. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development on site. Additionally, the proposed rezone will likely not result in any unreasonable air or water pollution, as all pertinent regulations apply and will need to be adhered to. Any disturbance greater than 1 acre would require a DNR stormwater management permit. The town has approved the rezone of the property. The town of Frankfurt Town Board has expressed no concern with the rezone through email and meeting minutes. All concerns from other agencies have been addressed. The county was not made aware of any concerns from other agencies. Cpz Staff Recommendations. The rezone meets all zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The town of Frankfurt expressed they have no issues with the proposed rezone through their email and meeting minutes. Based on the information provided, finding of facts, conclusions of law, and the town's input, it appears the rezone request meets all the required standards for rezoning. Therefore, Cbz staff and the environment recommend that the environmental committee approve the rezone to the county board of supervisors.
Thank you, Shad. Any questions for staff? I've got a couple. The first one being, I know the town of Frankfurt has submitted rezones in the past. Why did they not provide a resolution for this one?
So this one, from my understanding, it was they didn't feel if they didn't have any criteria that went against it, they didn't need to. We explained to them that it's very helpful to get the town's input after we found out that they didn't, they went through it in the process, they just never filled out the paperwork.
Because even, and sort of a follow-up point to that, even if you look at their meeting minutes, I don't see official action in that paragraph. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one down, there's no motion made. So I'm a little confused by that. And then the second, or I guess the third point I want to make is that if there is no official action taken, and I might be splitting hairs at this point, but what constitutes an approval from the town? Is it that they mention it in their minutes, or is it that they provide an email? I'm taking that Dave Telschow is the town chairman?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, does that constitute approval from the town?
I think we would say it constitutes no approval or, like, that they didn't take issue with it. so,
Sure.
Is what we would say, so, no.
Yeah, and I struggle with that because one of the criteria is that the town approved the rezone, so.
And we're not entirely sure what happened, why they didn't officially pass it either, so.
Okay. No, and that first question that I asked, you might not be able to answer. I totally understand that. I just didn't know if there was like a new clerk or a new town chair that wasn't familiar with the process. That's why I led with that question. But any other questions for staff?
I would say if it says
We'll do Marilyn and then Tony.
they need to do a resolution. That's part of the requirements. And like it says, to hold until the town's resolution can be provided. I
Hey,
think we need
do you
to
have a
state
question
that.
for staff, Marilyn? Do you have a question for staff? Because that's probably better saved for discussion when we close the hearing. Okay?
They give good explanation.
Okay. Tony?
So my, excuse me, my question is, what ramifications would there be if we took the email, which is somewhat ambiguous, it's not quite according to the proper procedure, but if we took that at face value and said, we will accept that as an approval, would there be any repercussions from that?
I would honestly have to follow up on that, just to, I'm not 100% sure, so.
Okay, any more questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, thank you. Lori, given that you provided testimony there, I should swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay. Everything that you had just mentioned is factual to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing there's no further questions for staff, we'll move on. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone? Again, we're under 5A1, Tim Villan on behalf of Norbert Gooden, General Ag to Rural Residential Town of Frankfurt. Please identify yourself at this time. Usually Tim is here with us. Is he joining us electronically? No? Okay. I'll call again. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone? Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, please identify yourself at this time. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, 5A1, please identify yourself at this time. Last. Good? Cool. Last call, anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, please identify yourself at this time. Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak as interested, please identify yourself at this time. Last call, anybody wishing to speak as interested. Hearing that no one else wishes to speak on the application of Tim Vreeland on behalf of Norbert Gooden, General Ag to Rural Residential Town of Frankfurt, I am now declaring the public hearing closed. The committee will now deliberate on the application and apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. So, Marilyn, I think you had some comments, correct?
Thank you for correcting me.
That's fine.
I just think it says the board has, they need to follow the rules and regulations, because if we don't have them follow the rules and regulations, what's to prevent somebody else from not following the rules and regulations? They know that they have to have a town resolution.
So in regards to Supervisor Sherfinsky's comments earlier, I believe the main risk is that if the rezone were ever challenged and the proper procedure was never followed, then the rezone could be nullified, what have you, undone. That's the main concern. The main issue I see is that, you know, one of the standards that we have is that the town approved the rezone, and I really don't see why this rezone should be treated any differently. One of the reasons why I was hoping Tim was joining us today was that if we could close this hearing and wait a month and have the town board act on it, is that going to interfere with any of the timing from concerns that the applicant might have? Unfortunately, we do not have that information today. My own feelings are that we need to do some follow-up with the town to have them, you know, follow our process, which we could do by closing the hearing today and reopening it when we have more information from the town. That is my approach, but I'd certainly like to hear the rest of the committee's feelings as well. Supervisor Drabek.
Thank you, sir. I'm just wondering, as a matter of timing for the people who are doing the building, sometimes it's really hard, okay, you got this planned out and that doesn't work. So can we pass this today pending that the town board would send us, or ask that the town board would send us a resolution on that? And that would be, so when that goes to county board, that would be there by then? Just a thought.
So that would be a question of process, and I'd have to refer that to staff. If you can pass something that's contingent upon the approval of the town, I do not know the answer to that.
I believe we have obviously passed things before and asked for further clarification before they went to county board, is what we have done. So now, I think Frankfurt, I don't know their schedule off the top of my head. Would they be able to hold a special meeting and do that resolution prior to it? I'm not sure. So.
Supervisor Draper was just pointing out that the town typically meets the second Monday, so they would have ample time likely to follow up through that process. Tony? Supervisor Stravinsky? Okay. Okay. Any other comments? So it's up to the committee how they want to proceed. I think there's two paths, really. You could approve it and ask for additional information, or we close the hearing and follow up with the town for next month. I do totally understand Supervisor Drabek's concern. I would much rather lean towards following the process and having the town board take some action at their meeting. That's my personal approach, but again, I'd like to hear others' comments as well. All right, three
Would
people
this
picked up
be-
the mic on that side of the table. All right, let's do Supervisor Stravinsky, Marilyn, and then Supervisor Oberbeck.
I think what would be appropriate here, because of the possible delays that would be impacted, would be to go down the road of a conditional approval, and provided that we have the required documentation from the town prior to the meeting of the full county board.
Okay, now we have Marilyn.
There's nothing to prevent them from calling a special town board meeting to take care of this in the proper way that should be done.
Okay, Supervisor Oberbeck.
Yeah, I think if they would provide, they've given us a half of an answer, and I think we need the full answer and make it contingent on that approval. I don't know, are we able to give a conditional approval?
When that question has gotten asked in the past, it's been no. So that's where I get confused. Is Mike in his office right now? No?
He's not. I can reach out to Dan and Core Council and see if he can give us clarity on it, though.
Okay. Well, how about this? I've never had to do this before, but there's nothing to say that I couldn't close the hearing and then reopen it after we review the other two applications. And by that time, hopefully Dan in Mike's office hopefully has an answer for us. So without objection, I'm going to close this hearing, and hopefully we'll be able to reopen it later with some direction from our corporation counsel. Okay?
What's the implication of that? If we don't come back, circle back to it, have we?
Ultimately, I'm going to reopen it today, no matter what. Yeah, I'm not going to leave it closed if we don't have something from corporation counsel. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm going to close this hearing. I'm going to reopen it after we get through items 5A2 and 5A3. Moving on. 5A2, we have Gavin Borkart on behalf of Cbz Storage LLC, Light Industrial to Neighborhood Commercial, Town of McMillan, and we will begin with our staff report.
All right. So Gavin Borkart, petition to rezone lands, staff report, May 31st, 2022, for the Environmental Resource Committee. Petitioner, Gavin Borkart, lives at 116037 County Road P in Stratford. Property owner is K&B Storage LLC, 124833 Chanel Road, Stratford. The location of the rezone request, area proposed to be rezoned, is in the town of McMillan, just south of the intersection of Riverside Road and State Highway 97. The request, the petition of Gavin Borchardt on behalf of K&B Storage LLC to amend Marathon County zoning ordinance to rezone lands from light industrial to neighborhood commercial as described as part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of section 23, township 26 north, range 3 east, town of McMillan. The area proposed to be rezoned is described as lot 1 on the certified survey map, submitted with the rezone petition. Parcel PIN number is 056-2603-234-0968. Public hearing meetings, Town of McMillan held a special meeting on May 25th, 2022. Marathon County Environmental Resource Committee meeting, May 31st, 2022. Legal description, or a legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. Existing zoning district is light industrial. Existing generalized land use map. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as commercial in the town's comprehensive plan existing land use map. Adjacent lands are also comprised of agriculture, residential, woodland, and open lands. Proposed rezoned district, neighborhood commercial. The town's comprehensive future land use map. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as commercial in the town's comprehensive plan future land use map in 2021. Adjacent lands are comprised of residential uses. The area in question was designated as non-farmland preservation area in the farmland preservation plan, yet the town of McMillan does not participate in farmland preservation zoning, therefore there is no need, no parcels within the town zone farmland pres. Here's an aerial photo of the property. And here is the attached resolution from the town from their special meeting, which is also in the packets in front of you. On May 25th, the Town of McMillan Town Board recommended approval to the Marathon County's Environmental Resource Committee. Conclusions of law. The rezone is substantially consistent with the following plans: Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, Town Comprehensive Plan, and Marathon County Farmland Preservation Plan. The Marathon County Comprehensive Plan relies on the town's comprehensive plan regarding specific land uses and zoning districts for individual parcels. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as and designated as commercial in the town's future land use map. Cpz staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations, given the town board members and residents know their town and the true purpose and intent of the plan. The area in question was not designated as farmland preservation area. The town of McMillan does not participate in farmland preservation zoning, as indicated by the town's future land use and resolution, it appears the rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. The location of the proposed development minimizes the amount of agricultural land converted and would not substantially impair or limit current or future agricultural uses. No farmland will be consumed. The applicant has demonstrated that there is a need for the proposed development. Adequate public facilities are present or will be provided. Providing public facilities will not be an unreasonable burden to the local government. The need is to update rezone districts to comply with the current use. All necessary public facilities are anticipated to be provided, given any proposed development would rely off private systems such as private well and sanitary system. No anticipated burden on local government. All applicable building construction and use standards will be applied during the zoning and building permit process review. The rezone will not cause unreasonable air, water pollution, soil erosion, or adverse effects on rare or irreplaceable natural areas. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development on site. Additionally, the proposed rezone will likely not result in any unreasonable air and water pollution, as all pertinent regulations apply and will need to be adhered to. Any disturbance greater than 1 acre would need a DNR stormwater management permit. The town has approved the rezone, the proposed rezone of the property. The Town of McMillan Town Board has recommended approval of this rezone petition, and the request is in line with the town's future land use map. All concerns from other agencies on proposed rezones have been addressed. What are the concerns? The county was not made aware of any concerns from other agencies. Cpz Staff Recommendations. The rezone meets all the district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and is indicated by the town's future land use map and by the town's resolution. Based on the information provided, findings of fact, conclusions of law, it appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezone. Therefore, Cbz staff recommend the Environmental Resource Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Any questions for Shad in regards to agenda item 5A2, Gavin Borkar on behalf of KMBA Storage LLC? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, Shad. Okay. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone requests for item 5A2, please identify yourself at this time. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of agenda item 5A2, Gavin Borkart on behalf of KMB Storage LLC, light industrial to neighborhood commercial, town of McMillan, please identify yourself at this time. I will call one more time. Anybody wishing to speak?
Gavin Borkart is on by phone.
Mr. Borkart, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yep. Gavin Borkart, 116037 County Road P, Stratford, Wisconsin.
Mr. Borkart, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
We had bought the property in 2018. The current land use at that time was for self-storage, and that doesn't fall within the light industrial zoning use, so it's, I guess, at this time considered non-conforming. We have done a rebuild and a new build since 2018 that we've gotten non-conforming variances for. If we wanted to continue to grow, we'd have to get the zoning changed to be correct, as there is a limit as to how much expansion you can do under a non-conforming zoning.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Borkart from the committee? Seeing, hearing none. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to call one more time for agenda item 5A2. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone request, please identify yourself at this time. Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone request, please identify yourself at this time. Anybody wishing to speak against agenda item 5A2, please identify yourself at this time. I will call one more time after this. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, please identify yourself at this time. Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak as interested, please identify yourself at this time. I'll call one more time. Anybody wishing to speak as interested for agenda item 5A2, please identify yourself at this time. Seeing and hearing none, I'm now declaring the public hearing on agenda item 5A2, Gavin Burkhardt on behalf of K&B Storage LLC, Light Industrial to Neighborhood Commercial, Town of McMillan, now closed. The committee will now deliberate on the application, apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. What is the pleasure of the committee? Be a motion to approve or deny. If you make that motion, you should also include a brief reference for the approval or denial. Supervisor Seefeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that we pass the petition for Gavin Burkhardt on behalf of K&B Storage LLC to amend the county zoning ordinance to rezone land from light industrial to neighborhood commercial, and to pass the conclusion of laws and forward it to the county board.
And pass, you essentially mean approve, right? Supervisor Seefeld? Got it. Okay. Motion is made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Shafinsky. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5A3, we have Matthew Leinbach, Rural Estate to Rural Residential, Town of Spencer. We will begin with our staff report.
Matthew Leinbach, petition to rezone land, staff report, May 31st, 2022, Environmental Resource Committee. Petitioner is Matthew Leinbach, 1091-15 County Road C in Spencer. Property owners is Matthew Leinbach, and it's at the same address. Location of rezone request, area proposed to be rezoned is in the town of Spencer, west of the intersection of Abe Lincoln Ave and County Road C. Request, the petition of Matthew Leinbach to amend Marathon County zoning ordinance to rezone lands from urban residential and rural estate to rural residential as described as part of the northeast quarter of Section 12, Township 26 North, Range 2 East, Town of Spencer. The area proposed to be rezoned is described as Lot 2 on the certified survey map that was submitted with the rezone petition, parcel PIN number 074-2602-121-0983. Public hearings, the Town of Spencer Town Board meeting met May 12th, 2022, Marathon County Environmental, or May 10th, 2022, Marathon County Environmental Resource Committee meeting, May 31st, 2022 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. Existing zoning districts, urban residential, and rural estate. Existing land use map, Town of Spencer, Comprehensive Plan 2017. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as residential in the town's comprehensive plan existing land use map. Adjacent land uses are comprised of agriculture, commercial, and residential. Proposed zoning district, rural residential. The town's comprehensive future plan land use map. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as commercial in the town's comprehensive plan future land use map. Adjacent lands are uses are comprised of agriculture and residential. Farmland preservation. The town of Spencer does not participate in farmland preservation zoning, therefore there are no parcels within the town zone farmland preservation. Here's an aerial of the property. Town recommendation. On May 10th, 2022, the Town of Spencer Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resource Committee. Conclusions of law. The rezoning is substantially consistent with the following plans: Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, Town Comprehensive Plan, and Marathon County Farmland Preservation Plan. The Marathon County Comprehensive Plan relies on the town's comprehensive plan regarding specific land uses and zoning districts for individual parcels. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown to be designated as commercial in the town's future land use map. Cpz staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations, given the town's board members and residents know their town and true purpose and intent of the plan. The area in question was not designated as farmland preservation area. The town of Spencer does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. As indicated by the town's resolution / recommendation, it appears the rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. The location of the proposed development minimizes the amount of agricultural land converted and will not substantially impair or limit current or future agricultural use of other protected farmland. No cropland will be consumed. The applicant has demonstrated that there is a need for the proposed development. An adequate public facilities are present or will be provided, and providing public facilities will not be an unreasonable burden to the local government. The need to correct split zoning in parcel. All necessary public facilities are anticipated to be provided, given any proposed development would rely on private systems such as private well and sanitary systems. No anticipated burden on local government. All applicable building, construction, and use standards will be applied during the zoning and building permit review process. The rezone will not cause unreasonable air and water pollution, soil erosion, or adverse effects on rare or irreplaceable natural areas. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development site on site. Additionally, proposed development will likely not result in any unreasonable air, water pollution, as all pertinent regulations apply and will need to be adhered to. Any disturbance greater than 1 acre would need a DNR stormwater management permit. The town has approved the rezone of the property. The Town of Spencer Town Board recommended approval of this rezone petition. All concerns from other agencies on the proposed rezone have been addressed. The county has not been made aware of any concerns from other agencies. Staff recommendations. The rezone meets all zoning district standards as it relates to frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan as indicated by the town's resolution. Based on the information provided, finding of fact, conclusion of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, Cpz staff recommend that the Environmental Resource Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Any questions for Shad? Okay, I do have one, and I believe you answered this, but I want to know for certain. So the existing property that's there is both urban res and rural estate. Only the rural estate is going to rural residential as part of this application.
No, both of them will be going to rural residential. Currently, as it sits, the parcel has 2 designations on it, meaning you have 2 sets of rules on one parcel. So it would be converting both of those designations into a rural residential.
So a follow-up to that, as part of the, and actually I have 2 things here. So the notice provided to that was part of the publishing, did that specifically say that it was rural estate and urban residential to rural resident, or urban residential and rural estate to rural residential? Did that say that?
I believe so.
Okay. So the agenda the agenda that we have for us today, the notice that we provide for the meeting today, only says rural estate, and that goes to rural residential. See what I'm talking about, Chad? 5A3, where it says on the agenda?
Gotcha, yeah, that,
Because really, it should be rural estate and urban residential to rural residential, because you're taking both of those and you're putting it into rural res.
Correct, yep. That other one should have been listed on there as well.
Okay. Well, any other questions for staff at this time? Seeing and hearing none, I have a clarifying question, I guess, for our corporation counsel who's here in front of us today. Matt, right? Dan, I'm sorry. Last name, please? I'm unsure whether or not to do this as part of the public hearing or not. I'm going to swear you in just to be safe. So Dan, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
My question is that due to this being noticed as part of the agenda today as going from rural estate to rural residential and not including the urban residential, can we act on this item?
Usually I would not act on any item that was not on the
Properly
agenda
noticed?
because that does not give public, correct.
Okay.
When action is taken, the public, I believe, should be notified. So yes, if it was not on the agenda, that action, specific actions was going to be taken, I would not take that action today.
Okay.
That's correct. We just have a typo on the agenda.
I guess I'll ask any questions for staff. Seeing, hearing none.
Yeah, we just forgot.
Okay. Here's the, and this is why I'm concerned right now. So the issue becomes, the way that this was noticed as far as what we can work on today only concerns the rural estate piece to rural residential. We can't also go back and take the urban residential piece. That's why this is an issue. One option would be to close this hearing and take it up again at a future meeting, which I think is only proper given that this is essentially incomplete work that we can't act on right now. However, we're not in deliberation either. I'm going to contemplate this silently for a couple seconds.
Are you in deliberations?
Well, I'm thinking of how to address this, because on the one hand, the notice of the public hearing that was provided by publication includes
Is correct. yes.
is correct, but the notice that was provided for this particular meeting does not appear to be correct. Regardless, I don't believe we should be taking action on this today. My feelings are given that this is an item that doesn't accurately reflect the work that we have here, or what was provided with the notice by publication. I do not believe that we're going to act on this today. We will follow up at a future meeting to take up this matter.
Hey, Jacob, I just spoke with the property owner, and holding it off for a month is not an issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, we will follow up with that one for next month. So we're going to close this public hearing for 5A3 Lionbach Rural Estate to Rural Residential Town of Spencer. We'll take it up at a forthcoming month. Now, I said that we were going to go back up to 5A1. To clarify, I'm not going to reopen that public hearing, but we do have a staff member here who can provide clarification with the question that we had for the Norbert Gooden rezone. And the question really was, can we approve something, essentially get it in motion to the county board conditional upon that town board providing us a resolution for approval? So I would direct that question to Dan.
So I've only had a limited amount of time to do this research, but based on my research, yes, you can have that conditional approval. Usually conditional approvals are okay as long as they're not contrary to any state statute, federal law, or otherwise if they would be contrary to our zoning ordinances. Just reviewing Chapter 59, I see nothing in there that would prohibit this action from taking place. And so my conclusion is that, yes, you would be able to do a conditional rezoning.
Okay. Thank you. That being said, I think we have the answer to that one that we were looking for. What is the pleasure of the committee? Supervisor Shafinsky?
I would like to make a motion that we approve that rezone.
Okay.
Let me get the right. That would be the Gooden rezone.
When a motion is made, you should include a reference to the reasons for the approval or denial. That could be, the findings in the staff report, for example, appears to be compliant with our standards. You should include something like that in the motion to approve. So that's the first part. The second part is that it be conditional upon receiving a resolution from the town approving it as well.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I would like to submit that we have a resolution to approve the Gruden rezone conditional upon the approval of the town of Frankfurt, and actually receive that before the next county board meeting, and that be in line with the recommendation that we had from staff and from corporate counsel.
Okay. Okay. Has a reason, has the condition, sounds good. Okay, motion is made by Supervisor Shafinsky. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Drabek. Any further discussion? I would ask staff that as soon as we get that resolution, please send out an email to the committee. And also include that resolution in the county board packet when we get to that point. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, and thank you to everybody who provided testimony today. Very much appreciated. Moving on, 5B, review and possible recommendation to county board for its consideration. Town zoning changes pursuant to Wisconsin statute 60.62 sub 3, we have none. 5AC, review and possible recommendation to county board for its consideration, we have none. And 5D, review and possible action, we have none. Moving on to 6, educational presentations, outcome monitoring reports, and committee discussion. A, department updates, conservation planning and zoning, park, rec, and forestry, solid waste. We will begin with conservation planning and zoning. 6A1, Macdevco loan program update.
Okay, this is just a verbal update, just giving people some idea of what we've been working on for new committee members. The Macdevco loan program was approved in 2018 for helping to landowners to repair failed private on-site wastewater treatment systems. It was meant to replace the Wisconsin Fund, a state-funded grant program for those types of systems, but it was in the county. It's been designed as a revolving loan program so that we could use the environmental impact funds and continue to put those to good use throughout the county. We have not been successful in getting anyone to take those loans yet, so we went back in the last few months and we're working with Macdevco and looking internally to try and identify some of the things that we thought needed to be fixed in the loan program in order to make it successful. And I've been working with Administrator Leonard and Macdevco in doing those updates. So we are going to proceed with doing an updated agreement with Macdevco to change some of the eligibility requirements for the loan program, which we believe will help it make it more attainable and desirable for landowners to pursue a loan. The two big things that we are looking to change with them are making sure that a borrower can borrow 100% of what they need to repair their system that wasn't actually in place before, and also just looking at the income requirements as well, making loosening those up to fall more in line with what the rural housing loan program does, so that people will then more people will qualify to pursue the loan. So right now it's still, we're still in discussions with Macdevco to revise our agreement and how those eligibility terms will look. But if we can get through those in the next month or so, we hope to have a new loan program this summer. So. Lance, did you want to add anything to that? Okay.
Oh, I got multiple people here, and I was going to add something, so yeah, go ahead, Lance. No? Okay. Marilyn, go ahead.
I have a question, is, I think they need to adjust their application fee. I think it's too high.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before. The fee is definitely for processing the application, some administrative cost to process the application, and they can actually roll it into the loan if that is needed. So they don't have to pay it up front. So it's not something they recommend to borrowers, but they can actually roll it into the loan if need be. So.
Thank you. I'm going to give a little bit more history to the committee because we have some new members here. Long ago, there was a settlement reached between Marathon County and a power company in regards to some, we'll call it company infrastructure being installed in the county. With that settlement, Marathon County created what was then called the Environmental Impact Fund, or the EIF funds. The EIF program was a program where communities could come to, I believe at the time it was the Environmental Resources Committee, and essentially they could submit projects which could be funded with these EIF dollars. And of course, these projects had to have some sort of environmental focus. What ended up happening was that, like with a lot of one-time funding sources, the funds ran out. And as we got closer and closer to the end of the EIF, we were trying to figure out what projects we could fund that would have the most lasting impact in Marathon County. Back then, as Lori had mentioned, there was what was called the Wisconsin Fund, and we are always striving to achieve 100% compliance with our private on-site waste treatment, I don't know if you want to call them facilities, but equipment that's within the county for our landowners. And I'm sure most of you know who own land and have a POUT system, those can be quite expensive, especially in regards to getting them into compliance. So the Wisconsin Fund was a opportunity for those landowners who had income constraints that they could go and receive funding to get them into compliance. Given that the EIF was nearing the end of its life cycle, the committee decided to take the remaining funds after going through another funding cycle and set those funds aside to be available to those lower income groups so that they could get into compliance with their POUT systems. Now again, this was with the understanding that the Wisconsin Fund was not going to be funded in another budget cycle. And lo and behold, the Wisconsin Fund has continued to be funded. So essentially where we're at is that we have this pot of money that came from the EIF, has been set aside to go towards these people who need assistance. And well, they haven't been coming to use the funds, which some of it is likely due to some of the, it could be, or I should say could be likely due to the standards of the program itself. Also the Wisconsin Fund still continuing to be funded. So now we have this policy question of, well, how do we use these funds that have been set aside? We're sort of in this evaluatory phase where we made this program that we thought was going to address a problem, but we haven't seen a lot of interest with it. So that's the history behind it.
The only thing I will add is that the Wisconsin Fund is not accepting any more applications at this time, and there's no indication they're going to continue. We don't know that for sure, but their funds were only approved through 2023, and they've closed all applications for that now. So
another good point to demonstrate the need to go back and evaluate this. So we have Marilyn and then Tony.
How much money's in that fund now, approximate?
I do not have a balance on that yet.
Okay.
I think it's approximately $1 million. Is that what we thought? Or, yeah, but I'm having finance check that, so. Yeah.
Okay. Lance, did you have something? I will get to you, Tony.
Thank you. My best recollection is it was $750,000 that was transferred. And to build on the complex nature of the history of this issue, one other piece of important information that may bear on whether or not individuals would access either the Wisconsin Fund or the Macdevco program is that within Marathon County, our strategy, as Chair Langenhan referenced, to really addressing the failing systems throughout the county, and there are a lot of pout systems throughout Marathon County, as you might anticipate learning, because of our relatively rural nature, our large landmass. We have a lot of residences that utilize personal on-site wastewater treatment systems. But our strategy to make sure that those were in compliance was to address that at time of sale. That was the way that Marathon County had historically, through our Conservation Planning and Zoning Department, had sought to take enforcement action. We would, at the time of sale, make sure that the system was in compliance. The state legislature prohibited that practice several years ago in the midst of the policy discussion that was happening at the board. So we lost a very, at least in our mind, useful tool in that enforcement mechanism, because as you might anticipate, if I'm selling my property to Marilyn and she's going to purchase it, the time of sale is a perfect occasion where you have an individual looking to purchase the property. They want to know the real value of that property. Having the system assessed at that point and compliance being guaranteed through that sale makes logical sense. However, the state legislature, again, they took a different approach to that and indicated that we couldn't condition real estate transfers upon that conditional assessment of the system. Nevertheless, I think as Director Miskimmons referenced, there's certainly not been the utilization of the Macdevco program that I think, quite honestly, certainly that county administration would like to see. So we are looking to see what is the root cause of that. I think to Marilyn's point, having a potential barrier be the administrative fee, that upfront administrative fee. We're looking at that. I think there's a simple workaround to that. Also making sure that, we're really, if we're trying to address these systems that are on pieces of property that are owned by individuals that are far below the average or median standard income within Marathon County, we're going to need to have perhaps some different approaches relative to loan to value. We need to let people take 100% loan to value of the system. Again, we're taking an interest, a property interest, as a result of the loan that Macdevco would make. But there's a lot of moving parts, and we'll hopefully in the next month have a more definitive update to provide to you.
Thank you, Lance. Hold on. We had Supervisor Sherfinsky, then Marilyn.
My question being new is, how long has the present situation been in existence? And in all good faith, put out this program, but so far, how long has that been?
How long has the loan program been in existence? 2019, I believe. January 2019 is when it went into existence.
Okay, so not that long.
I would add one thing, and this is where I lean on staff to provide a little bit more clarity at their expertise. The need with getting those POUT systems into compliance comes from a requirement from the state. And I believe that's also what created a need to get some sort of funding source in place for what we anticipated was a greater amount of people that would request funding to get their systems into compliance.
Correct.
Is that
Yeah,
ringing any
correct.
bells? Okay.
And I know, and when you initially took up the issue in 2019, it was believed the Wisconsin Fund was going to sunset, I think, that year. They have extended it a couple times, but we're under the impression they're done. So,
Sure. Okay.
but can't guarantee that.
Yeah. Marilyn.
Most financial institutions will not loan money if there's a failing system on the property.
And, I mean, they will have criteria they will have to look at for giving the loans for sure. So, but, I mean, these are the things we're working out with them. The other thing I was going to say was the Wisconsin Fund established, I believe, that the income level was less than $45,000. And I think that's another thing that we've experienced in talking to homeowners is sometimes you have people who are making slightly more than that, but still can't afford to fix their system, or it's not their top priority, which is why we're trying to expand the income parameters within the loan program so that it can be more attainable to people that are above that 45,000 mark. So, yeah.
Supervisor Shafinsky.
Do we have any data on an average cost of remediation on these systems?
Yes. So I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, we are updating our numbers depending on the different systems. So Macdevco will know what is the maximum somebody might need to borrow in order to fix a mound, a conventional, things like that. So,
That would be good to have
Okay.
for the committee.
Sounds good. Supervisor Drabeck?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, the loan amount is, if they loan money to somebody, it's 4%, am I correct?
we do not have the updated terms and rates yet.
That was the
Okay.
last I heard
Yeah.
from the committee that it went through.
So
that
they're,
it was at 4%. And to me, that was kind of like, okay, I think, and I'm not very good at math, but I think every 18 years, if they don't pay it, it doubles. Am I correct on that?
Good at math.
So it seems like that would add up, you know, and then, so just.
That's one of the things Macdevco is looking at, is their updated rates and terms as well, so.
So then it sounds like the follow-up is to wait for the new version of that agreement for the committee to review then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for staff or any more discussion at this time? This has been very good discussion, by the way. Okay, seeing and hearing none, we will have more information on this item in the future, that cost information, and then the updated agreement as well. Thank you, staff, for the update. 6A2, groundwater planning efforts 2023 to 2028.
Groundwater for a little bit. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kirsty Heidenreich, and I'm the Conservation Program Manager with the Cpz Department.
I'm going to hit timeout just for a second. Is that mic on? I just want to confirm that people online can hear. And of course, anybody else in attendance can hear as well, but it didn't sound like it was on. Can people hear in the back? No? Okay.
Can you hear me in the back? Give me a thumbs up if you can. I'm not getting any thumbs up. Oh, the light. Okay, try number 2. Here we go. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kirsty Heidenreich, and I'm the Conservation Program Manager in CPZ. Dale, do you want to do a quick introduction too?
Good afternoon. My name is Dale Grosskirth. I'm with the County Health Department. I'm the Environmental Health and Safety Program Director.
So Dale and I are going to team up just for a couple minutes. I know it's been a long meeting already, but we just wanted to talk with you very briefly on some groundwater planning efforts for the next couple of years. So this is actually my second ERC meeting. I was here last month too, but I replaced Paul, so I'm still pretty fresh. And one thing that I definitely have taken away out of last month's meeting and this meeting is that the majority of the public comments have been focusing on concerns with groundwater. And so we wanted to talk to the committee a little bit about, you know, what we can do over the next coming years to address those concerns. And we really want the county to benefit from this information as well. You know, we heard a comment earlier today even that water is life. And as a conservationist, I absolutely agree. And so do our staff. And that's what we work hard every day doing, is protecting groundwater. Marathon County, our goal is to be the healthiest, the safest, and most prosperous county in Wisconsin, and water is absolutely an important piece of that puzzle. So let's talk just a little bit about why we're behind and why we need to do a little bit of catching up here. So Marathon County does have a groundwater plan in place. Unfortunately, it was last updated and adopted in 2001. So To give you, a mental image of that, I'm 37 years old. I was still in high school when this was last adopted. So it's obviously a little bit outdated, and we need to do a little bit of work to come together and decide how we can start taking action on groundwater in the county. So we do have a severe lack of some recent well testing data. And we recently had a meeting talking about, what are the first baby steps we need to do to update the plan. And we were in complete agreement that we need to develop some good baseline data to update the plan. Obviously, without having data in place, it's hard to know where we are and where we're going with the status of our groundwater. Now, many Wisconsin counties are currently funding broad-scale groundwater studies. And if you do pay attention to the environmental sectors of the news, you'll hear a lot in the news about these other counties that have established these vigorous well testing programs. In every single one of these situations, it is the county that has helped fund these studies. Many times, the studies are being funded in full by the county boards. So I just put a few examples of some of our cohorts that are going down this path. So Sauk County, Greene County, Chippewa, Dodge, Barron, and Kewaunee are all currently involved in massive well testing studies. So this is a map that we pulled off of the Wisconsin Well Water Data Viewer. So the lab out of Stevens Point is the one who updates this data. I know you have a very small screen to see, but if you can see the borders of Marathon County in the central part of that picture, I zoomed out fairly far in this picture because I wanted you to see how Marathon County compares in the collection of data compared to the surrounding counties. So this is showing nitrates by the sections in the county. And you can see that Marathon County has a lot of just blank or cream colored sections. That means those are sections where we don't have any nitrate tests that have ever occurred and have been sent to the state lab to be reported. And so if you just look to the south of us, you can see Portage County, almost every single section is filled in with at least some type of color, whether that's good or bad. And that's because, many of our surrounding counties are working really, really hard to try to collect that good baseline data of where they are in the status of their groundwater so that they can start making action plans on what they want to do next. One other concerning set of data shows the atrazine collection that's happened in Marathon County. So again, if you look at the county borders, you can see that we truly have just a handful of sections where we've ever collected atrazine tests. That's typically an herbicide that's used for the control of broadleaf weeds and grasses. And so a lot of times it is used on row crops, and there are some concerns to human health with that as well. And I know, just speaking to other peers that have been with the county for some time, that atrazine is something that is, a fairly large concern in our county. But it is really concerning to me to see that we don't have any data on an issue that we know we are dealing with in Marathon County. So that's definitely something that we can improve. This is a map that shows you can see the risk of groundwater contamination in Marathon County. So the purple areas are the areas where the soil is most susceptible to groundwater contamination. So the central and eastern part of our county, just based on the geology and the soils there, it's a lot easier for contaminants to enter the groundwater and cause issues there. That's not saying that that part of the county has more groundwater contamination. That's just saying, more than anything, these are areas where we should be going above and beyond to see what the land use is and to see what the data looks like on site. So you'll see here some data that was collected through a program that was run through our planning department. Previously, it's called the University Alliance. And so these are students from UW-Madison that are basically hired for summer projects through the planning department, and they do graduate level work to collect data and, work on some issues in the county or the city that we could use some help on. And so what they did is they wanted to update a lot of the maps that we had in our groundwater plan. And so they took data that was derived from the Central Wisconsin Groundwater Center, and they discovered that out of all the different tests that are really available or that can be done, that we only had the township level data complete for just nitrate in Marathon County. And even the nitrate data that we have on hand is very insufficient, and it's very old as well. So a lot of the data that we do have on nitrates is like 20 years old. And so we don't know if the nitrates have gotten better or if they've gotten worse, but we can't even really make an educated assumption without getting a fresh set of data. So our surrounding counties with really sandy soils, they focus a lot on testing for nitrates. And so thankfully that is something that we do have some data for, but many of the other measures that we could be testing for, even these graduate level students, they're saying it's all too incomplete. They said it is too incomplete to be of any utility. So it's like they attempted to use the data we have on hand to try to update our plan and make some forward progress, but you can see all the boxes marked in red. It says low. That means too low of data for them to even be updating any of this mapping information for us. So kind of in closing here, let's just talk very briefly on how we can catch up. It's absolutely not a lost cause by any means. So our department recently submitted a request for capital improvement funds to try to launch a well testing program in Marathon County starting in 2023, and it'd be a 2-year program. As a backup plan, we do also plan on trying to submit this request for ARPA funds if our first request is not successful. So we connected immediately with the Center for Groundwater Studies out of UW-Stevens Point, and they typically are the source that is taking the lead in helping many of these other county-based programs that are happening. So we came to them with an ambitious goal saying, are we crazy for wanting to test 1,000 wells in Marathon County? And their response is like, you could probably do more if you wanted to, because we are the biggest geographical county in Wisconsin. So we're just in a different boat than a lot of these other counties that are also testing. So we think that 1,000 wells is a really good start, and that should at least give us the basic information of what we can perhaps later expound upon. So to make this seem feasible, we thought in 2023 and 2024, we could do 500 tests each of those years. And we would do 2 big collections in each of those years of 250 tests each time. So it'd obviously be, a very targeted outreach campaign to try to get successful collections. It wouldn't just be a volunteer program where we just kind of throw the news out there and say, hey, whoever wants to test, come bring your water. In order to specifically use our resources the most wisely, what we would do is we would do more of a targeted study based on the spatial data of wells and their location. So we would find certain areas in each township where we know that we will get the best sample based on population, based on density and land use. Those are all specific parameters that the Groundwater Center in Stevens Point helps provide to our GIS people here at the county. So we know we have to reach out to more people than who we want to participate. So, we may have to reach out to like 2,500 or 3,000 people to successfully get 1,000 wells tested. But we don't want to just do a broad campaign saying anyone come, because we may end up getting 90% of the samples from one small part of the county. And we really want our maps to show that we are trying to get samples from every township, every section, that sort of thing. We also want to work on getting a Marathon County groundwater work group going as well, and that's part of the reason that Dale is joining me here today. I cannot express how wonderful it's been to work with him, and he has certainly shown the health department's desire to, really invest in the health and safety of Marathon County citizens as well. So I really appreciate that. So hopefully we can have a good collaboration between CPZ and the health department and, put together a science-based data collection. And overall, this planning, it really helps in aiding the Marathon County strategic plan. So this is just a screenshot from the plan here. Objective 6.3, the goal is to protect and enhance the quantity and quality of potable groundwater and potable surface water supplies. So this is what we have all been charged with, right? Those of us involved here at the county, what we do to support these efforts and get behind engaging in this type of plan is what we're here to accomplish together. And without collecting this, entry-level set of data to discover where we are, it's going to be almost impossible to ever reach this objective. So we're hoping that you can get behind this idea and this plan with us, and we're excited about what is hopefully to come. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dale.
I really don't have a lot more to add, other than I will say that based on some research and efforts we were looking at several years ago, that about a third of Marathon County's residents get their water from a private well. In essence, we're talking about the same individuals who have septic systems out there, and we're trying to protect their drinking water as well. The DNR has data and information about roughly 11,000 wells out there where there are construction reports. They estimate that there may be twice as many for which there are no reports. Many of them can be unabandoned wells and can be contributing to unsafe water for an individual. So a lot of what I foresee happening out of a project like this is information and education to our residents, really, for how to protect themselves and how we can help them to do so. I'll stop.
Okay, any questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Supervisor Unger, yeah.
I have a question. So you said I don't know if you've gotten this far into thinking this through, but I have a few questions actually. But on one instance, so if you find, let's say this person volunteers or applies to have their water tested and you find contamination, what's the recourse? Is there help for I'm just thinking, are people going to want to have you involved in their groundwater testing?
That is always a conundrum. For the private well owner, unlike the individuals that are on a municipal system, there isn't an organization or agency taking care of their well. For those of us on a private well, it's you. What we do at the health department with the individuals that we work with who have an unsafe or high nitrate level is we try to connect them up with information and or contractors who can assist them in doing so. But at this point, much of the cost is borne by the individual.
Supervisor Unger, did you have a follow-up?
Well, I had a couple of questions. My thought would be, I guess I'm, no. Sorry.
There'll be other opportunities.
Yeah.
Sure, yep.
Okay, next time.
Yep. Supervisor Sherpinski.
So just a clarification on the number of actual wells that are out there. What is the total number? I'm not quite sure I heard the right clarification on that.
The report I'm referring to at that time showed that there were 11,531 wells documented on DNR's. They tracked the construction. That was from 1987 until the time of this report, which was 2019. We were looking at it several years ago and working with CPZ on it then. At that time, when I asked what they estimated, you don't have to take out a permit to pound in a sand point, and many people will. So they estimated there may be close to 22,000 out there.
So 22,000 is the total number, not 22,000 additional.
Right, correct, yeah, roughly,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay, let's go Maryland, Supervisor Drabeck, Supervisor Overbeck.
If the well is contaminated, is there any funding to help close that well provided by either the state or the county or anybody to abandon that well if it is contaminated and can't be fixed?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to throw this out there to you all too. We realized in giving this presentation today that it likely would come with a lot of questions or perhaps concerns as well. And today we truly meant to just kind of give you an overview, you know, of what we're hoping to do over the next couple of years. And then at the committee's request, we are happy to put together, you know, a more detailed presentation on what some of this means. And obviously, I think everyone's big concern is, you know, okay, in 2 years, we have the data. What does this mean for the county? And so, you know, we have a lot of ideas, and also the Groundwater Center in Stevens Point is very dedicated to doing the outreach follow-up post-data collection, because the last thing on earth we want to do is, you know, have people test their wells, get scared to death, and then tell them too bad. You know, that's not what's going to happen. And so there are, you know, there's some resources and there's lots of education that goes along with campaigns like this. And so if you guys really do want to dig into some of these issues, we can do a more detailed presentation, or if you have specific concerns, we can, you know, try to get that for you as well. But regarding contamination, Dale is probably a little bit better equipped to answer some of those questions, because the health department answers those on a daily basis. But specifically, the CPZ, abandoning wells, people can do that through our department too. There's permits involved with that.
So unlike Wisconsin Fund or whatever else is following that, there aren't necessarily a lot of funding sources for well replacement. My understanding is that if you have some sort of a chemical contamination, the DNR has a fund for that. If you have bacterial, they don't. And if it's nitrates, it has to be quite high. There was some legislation that was brought forth but didn't make it through the state that would have lowered that and made more individuals eligible who had nitrate contaminated wells. But there aren't a lot of resources for individuals. I'm aware of a funding program through a community block grant program, but I'm not real clear on how much of that funding is available for well owners.
Okay, Supervisor Drabeck, then Supervisor Overbeck.
Thank you. How much do you think this would cost to implement?
I'm going to clarify, this is in regards to the 1,000 tests, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I have another question after that.
Sounds good.
In our request, we asked for $400,000 that would go over a 5-year period of time. So keep in mind, there are lots of different options on the level we would like to fund the program. We would propose that this program is funded in full without putting the cost on the landowner. If we have to go with backup plans, something like funding half the cost to the landowner and asking them to do the other half of the cost would be kind of the next best thing. But I can tell you those other counties that I mentioned in my presentation, those tests are all being funded in full by the county to try to capture that baseline data to help the county decide what steps they would like to take next.
To be clear, just to add one thing, the 400,000 is for the entire planning effort. It's not just for the data collection, so.
Thank you.
Okay, follow-up from Supervisor Drabeck, then Supervisor Overbeck.
Thanks. The other thing I was wondering about is the thing with the PFAS now. I hear municipalities are testing for that, and then they shut down wells and stuff. Are these wells that you're going to test be tested for that as well? No pun intended.
Sure. Unfortunately, well, I shouldn't even say unfortunately. I'll say this. We did talk with Kevin Masaryk at UWSP about PFAS because we knew that that was such a huge concern for Marathon County. And so this is what he said to us about PFAS. He said that in his opinion, there will be more affordable measures coming down the road in the next year or two for both municipalities and private residents who want to test for PFAS. Right now in Wisconsin, there are only 2 laboratories that test for PFAS. One is in Madison, and then the other is in Crandon. If a private citizen wanted to go get a test for PFAS, it's $500 at this point in time, and it's very backlogged in their testing as well, since those labs are so busy with that sort of testing. And so due to the cost, there's just no feasible way to include that in the study. The good news is, Kevin said that the chance of a private well being contaminated with PFAS that is not near an airport or near fields that receive municipal sludge spread on them is extremely low. So it's really just the targeted areas that do have those 2 key factors near them that need to really worry about the contamination. That being said, if anyone is worried about PFAS contamination in their well, by putting by using an activated charcoal or a carbon filter, like what the Brita pitchers use, that takes out 50 to 90% of PFAS in drinking water. So that's a great first step, and I was so thankful I learned that because I didn't even know how effective that was in removing PFAS as well. So that's kind of where we're sitting with it. We know that our cities and villages are charged with making their municipal wells as safe as possible, and they're doing a lot with that testing. But in this campaign dealing with just private wells, we will not be including PFAS testing. But I was encouraged by what Kevin said with that, and he's the state's leading groundwater expert. So, did you have anything to add, Dale?
I think you did it.
Okay, Supervisor Overbeck.
Yeah, just an idea. Would it be possible to do all the public facilities throughout Marathon County, a lot of the town halls, the different facilities, to give a start to addressing the kind of the private concerns of having their wells tested? Then once the towns have theirs tested, maybe the public would be more, I guess, amenable to getting their wells tested once they know they're not in a danger zone.
That might be something Marilyn could help us with leveraging her influence with the towns in Marathon County to just get some testing done. One of the challenges is that the data that comes in is based on an individual's real estate transaction test, or we're having a new baby, so we're excited about that, and we get our water tested, or we're selling our home. We don't have a lot of consistent data from year to year to year. We have a small number of wells that fit into that category, which is why something like this is necessary. We just don't get to the hinterlands of our communities. And having the town halls test their well water would be one location. Many of them, I believe, do because they'll rent out the hall, so it's possible.
Your question is really good. You might want to invite yourself to a joint meeting in July at Red River Ballroom and just give a small presentation.
Okay, we've had quite a bit of discussion here, good questions. We do have some more agenda items here to get through. Any other questions for staff? If not, this is clearly a policy question that's going to be presenting itself in the future. Staff, thank you for being here today for your presentation. We'll move on. All right, we are on to 6A3 Fenwood update.
I'll just take this really quickly, and Kirsty, you can add if there's anything I missed. I just wanted to keep the committee informed that, as I think we said in a previous meeting, we did submit for ARPA consideration. I am being told that we will get an opportunity to present at HR Finance at some point in June or July on that application. So we'll report back after that. And then I believe, Kirsty, you had some additional information that we could potentially still reintroduce at the state level when it opens up again. So.
Yeah, I'll just, this is a hot mic. I'll just also briefly add that we recently met with a central Wisconsin legislator who is also really involved in groundwater work, and she gave us some tips on how to perhaps be more successful in the next session. Last time the proposal was submitted, it was submitted in the last 2 weeks of the session, which typically, that's kind of where bills tend to die. And so we want to give our bill the best chance of life. And so we plan on submitting it at a different time the next time around. And then we're also hoping to request the funds out of a slightly different pot of money that Wisconsin has. So we're hoping tweaking those 2 little things will hopefully give us a better chance of success in try number 2.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. 6A4, potential updates to the 2018-2022 strategic plan. I believe we have Vice Chair McEwen with us today. Hello, Craig. What'd you like to start with?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good late afternoon to the ERC committee and staff. The reason that I asked to, I'm going to be meeting with all the other standing committees about the strategic plan is this strategic plan is due to expire the end of this year, 2018-2022 strategic plan. And I know the new supervisors probably weren't aware of this, but we are in discussion of what we're going to do. I've been talking to the administrator and the chairman about how we're going to either continue with this one, add some things, subtract some things from the strategic plan. And we did come up with 3 questions that are on your agenda that I would just like to start with. First of all, the ERC committee is designated as a lead committee for 5.2 and 6.3. So specifically, when I ask these questions, you can look at the 5.2 and the 6.3 and consider about these questions that I'm going to be asking. But I welcome you to review the 12 objectives. Battery must have went dead, and I didn't speak that long. So the first question that I want to ask this committee to consider is what new strategies need to be added to the existing objectives in the plan. So if you have your strategic plan pamphlet with you, there's 6 strategies that are listed for 5.2. And the strategic plan came from the comp plan. So does everybody have the complete comp plan, the big book, or just the small one? Because the comp plan, the strategic plan, I should say, is developed from this strategic plan, and chapter 5 of the strategic plan, or I mean the comp plan, has 9 objectives to it. Now the committee was not able, the committee that developed the strategic plan did not want to have all 64 of the objectives in the strategic plan. The strategic plan is the 3 to 5 year outlook or vision of what the county will look like in 3 to 5 years. Now many things have changed since 2018, and we never envisioned the pandemic that caused us to change a lot of our priorities. But if you look at the strategic plan 5.2, those strategies that are listed up there, if you would take time, I'm not going to go over it with you today as far as the strategies, but I would like you to look at the strategies relevant to that objective and see if there are any existing strategies that need to be added to this, or maybe taken away from this objective 5.2. The next question, and I'm going to just go over 5.2 and then I'll go over 6.3, which is the next question for 5.2 is, should any of the strategies under the objectives be prioritized? So you have 6 strategies that are above objective 5.2. Are there any that you feel are more important? We didn't A, B, C, D, E, F, that not a hierarchy of which one's more important, but we do want to know from this committee, are there some strategies, or is there a strategy that you think should be number 1 and number 2, and so on? So when you review those strategies and the objective, and then the outcome measures also that are on the bottom, if you feel there's some importance to A versus B or any order, we would like to know that. And then the third question is, are there any objectives or strategies from the 2016 comp plan to be added to the strategic plan that we have? Because like I said, there's 64 objectives in the comp plan. We have 12 in our strategic plan. And when I was reviewing the ERC's strategic plan, it may be a stretch, but I did come across in Chapter 4 for community character goals, 4.1, promote a variety of safe and affordable housing options that meets the needs of the community members. You do a lot with zoning. Like I said, is there anything in that Chapter 4 that you might be able to fit into your one of your strategic plan or strategies that you have? And then the last one is on Chapter 10, Education, Workforce Development, and Economic Development. Every child and adult in Marathon County have the opportunity to get a quality education, and 4.1 says develop policies that support affordable, high-quality child care. From what I've been seeing on the news and different articles, it's very difficult to get quality child care. So is that something that could encourage economic development, that this committee could have some input in? Those are just my ideas. And like I said, I don't know what your ideas are.
Craig, with that last one, did you mean economic development? Because I'm trying to figure out how childcare would fall under ERC.
You could make it work. What I was thinking, and like I said, it might be a stretch, is economic development, okay? A lot of parents now cannot find quality health care, child care. They can't go to work, okay? So economically, it could benefit Marathon County if we would have more child care opportunities for parents. In fact, there were some Marathon County employees that they interviewed last week that could not get child care.
I 1,000% agree with you with that. I just don't see how that ends up in front of the Environmental Resources Committee.
Well, that's the type of discussions I'd like you to have.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I can see the connection with the community character part. I really can. That might be something that we could look at with the zoning code. Sorry, Craig, did you have anything else to add there? That was a clarifying question I wanted to ask you then.
No, I guess your other objective that you're the lead committee is 6.3. And I won't go over the 3 questions again, but if you could do the same process with the 3 questions for 6.3. So.
Lance, did you have something to add?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just again, I think my request of you is to be very visionary. As Chair McEwen referenced, the reason for this discussion is your strategic plan, the county board strategic plan, ends in 2022. the question that I understand board leadership has been debating is, do we do a whole new strategic plan? Or do we adopt perhaps an interim step of, do we extend the current strategic plan for perhaps 2 years to allow further progress to be made? And to help the board ultimately make that decision, the vice chair is here asking you these 3 questions, or asking you to look at these 3 questions, essentially to get at a couple of key pieces. The first is, take this strategic plan, the document that you all have, and see what needs to be added to it in terms of strategies for the objectives that are there. So looking at what is here already, what objectives, the 12 objectives that are here, and the vice chair referenced 2 that are primarily germane to this committee, what needs to be added in terms of new strategies. So for example, objective 6.3, you heard today about 2 very important things: updating the groundwater plan and evaluating what is the county's role in testing of private wells. Those are already, kudos to the board, they're already on your strategic plan. Strategy A and Strategy C. But are there new strategies as it relates to objective 6.3 that you think should be added? That's really the first question that is on your agenda. The second piece, should any of these strategies under that objective, objective 6.3, be prioritized? Stated differently, if we're talking about objective 6.3, should the first thing we do be update the groundwater plan, groundwater protection plan, or do we want to look at, maybe we want to prioritize strategy C, which is evaluate what our role is in terms of testing, whether it should be mandatory instead of voluntary? That's, again, a question that the vice chair is asking you to discuss here, ultimately to take to the executive committee and ultimately the full board for a decision on, again, whether you say, hey, we want to do a brand new strategic plan, start that process, or do you want to do the interim step of extending it for 2 years with some modifications to the existing plan? And then the last question that the vice chair brought up, my 2 cents on how I would approach that is, again, from that visionary perspective, irrespective of your committee, but certainly your committee's jurisdiction is important, but really irrespective of your committee jurisdiction, when you look through the 64 objectives within the comprehensive plan from 2016, are there objectives, hey, you know, in order to be effective, we do have to be selective, but is there something that jumps out to you that, geez, you know, there's not an objective in this plan, to use the vice chair's example, on affordable housing, but if in your mind affordable housing is the thing that the county needs to roll into some incremental 2-year extension, please bring that recommendation forward to the executive committee. Similarly, childcare isn't in your strategic plan. But as the vice chair said, irrespective of your jurisdiction, if there's something that, hey, this is really important, please bring that forward to the executive committee, because my perspective is that it will help the executive committee ultimately provide direction to staff on whether we're going to go down the path of a wholesale new strategic plan, or do we say, hey, let's extend this for 2 years with some modifications, because we recognize that the last 2 years, as the vice chair referenced with the pandemic, we've not been able to focus on a lot of the core duties. We've had to pivot in some areas, but we've also learned a great deal, and things are different than they were in 2018. We need to update our plan of action for those next 2 years if we go down that path of, again, updating the strategic plan for 2 years as opposed to a wholesale new 5-year strategic planning effort. So I hope that provides, again, some context to, you know, to the point that the vice chair is making. Those 3 questions are really important.
I don't think you need to throw out the whole thing and start all over, because there's a lot of good things in there. But you need to probably update things that you didn't think about, or how things have changed since that was created. So you don't have to start over from scratch, but just update some of the strategies, because some of the strategies are still good, but just make updates to it instead of saying, we're going to throw everything out and start all over again. That doesn't make sense.
Supervisor Stravinsky.
Okay. A couple observations. One is that I think that we are about to struggle with the concept of creeping scope. It is not the job of county government to handle every problem that shows up in the county, whether it be for good or ill, whether it be a great idea or not. That doesn't necessarily mean that it belongs on our table. Number two, if we have 64 objectives just from the standpoint of effective management, I would suggest that maybe we step back and think about, if we have a plan, how much can we actually accomplish in the time period that that plan is intended to encompass? You know, is it a 4-year period? Is it a 6-year period? Is it a 2-year period? And then step back and look at and say, and I'll just use 4 years as an example. Maybe in 4 years we can effectively plan and manage 20 objectives. And I'm using that just as an example. I don't know if that's the right number or not. But it strikes me that if we have too many objectives, you know, it's when everything's top priority, nothing is, and you end up flailing and flashing around, and we aren't effective. So I suspect that perhaps 64 different goals might be, you know, excessive if we want to look at effective management. Certainly from coming from the commercial world, no company that I'm aware of would put out a plan that says we have these 64 top-level goals for the entire organization. So, just an observation.
One thing I'm going to add, and that's a question that I think, you know, as part of the planning process, as far as what, you know, how many goals that you would have. However, one point that Supervisor Stravinsky makes is in regards to the timing aspect of it. Maybe staff or Craig, maybe you could speak a little bit more to how these plans, what the long-range outlook is with each of these plans.
I can give you the staff perspective. And I think Supervisor Stravinsky, you make a very good point. When everything is important, nothing is. And that's the whole point of the exercise. You know, I didn't approve this plan in 2016. The board did. The board identified 64 objectives with probably 200 plus strategies that it thought were important for 20 years. And they did that in light of a statutory obligation to engage in comprehensive planning in the state of Wisconsin. So the board was doing its job. To your point, the strategic plan is taking that 20-year look, and it identified from that comprehensive plan, again, the board identified from that comprehensive plan, the 12 of 64 objectives that it thought most important looking forward 5 years. As the vice chair referenced, of course, there are things that have happened in the last several years that were not within the plan, and that they did divert our attention. But at the end of the day, why does this plan matter? Is because staff build their annual work plans. I build my annual work plan, which again, the board approves off of the strategic plan. And to your point, there's more things on even that annual work plan than we can hope to get done in a year. But the discussion is one that over time, my hope is that I'm able to discern what your priorities are as a board. What do you want our time and energy and effort to go toward? Some of the things that the vice chair referenced have been things that the board has brought up in discussion at various times as important, but has not taken action on. The Education Extension Economic Development Committee, for example, has talked time and time again about the importance of childcare. what is the county's role? How can we, if anything, pursue methods by which we could expand access and enhance quality, affordable care? The question for the board is it important enough to be on the plan? That's a question for the board, not a question for me. I certainly have taken some action based on the direction from the Extension Education Economic Development Committee to move that forward. I think the Vice Chair's question of his example of affordable housing, it was in the 20-year plan. If you look to your comprehensive plan, and I know many of you were just handed an executive summary, but if you look to the full plan, you have objective 4.1, not in your strategic plan, but it's in your comprehensive plan. The board knew in 2016 that promoting a variety of safe and affordable housing options that meet the needs of all community members was important. The question for you is it more important than 52 other objectives or 50 or 49 other objectives to get added to the 5-year work plan? Or do we just take it up as it comes? Those are questions for you. You as the board, and as a subordinate body of the board, you recommend things to the board. I take my cue on what is important from the board. So to restate the Vice Chair's questions, it's really to assess what are the priorities moving forward. Do we want to extend this plan for 2 years? And to Marilyn's point, I don't think anyone is saying throw the plan out. What they're saying is, do we go through a wholesale new process of finding 12 objectives or however many the board want, or do we use the 12 that are there with perhaps some tweaks? But that's a question for you. Staff can bring you information. We can bring you recommendations, but at the end of the day, that's a policy decision of the board. If you recall from the presentation from Wisconsin Counties Association, be visionary, set the goal. What do you want us to work on? If you want us to work on affordable housing, we'll find a whole bunch of hows to do that, and the Vice Chair brought up one. Maybe we'd take a look at our zoning code and see what regulations we can put in place to incentivize the things you want. We can apply for grants, but you need to set the priority. So, sorry for the perhaps soapbox of what is policy and what is operations, but that's how I use it. And you, at every step of the way, the board gets a kick at the cat until it crosses that line of, hey, this is operations, but you do set the policy and you approve my annual work plan. Right now, childcare's on it, affordable housing isn't. Do you want it on there? Through the strategic plan.
Here's what I'm going to propose, because I do want to get the wheels to the ground at some point here. Chair Gibbs is with us. Chair Gibbs, if I recall at the last executive committee meeting, the ultimate outcome of the discussion was that we were not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, that we are going to fashion something from the existing plan that will be slightly updated. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so I think what the Vice Chair is asking is the input on an update.
Yes.
And so the three questions that are being proposed and posed to you is this committee, take a look at those three questions. Again, look at the comprehensive plan, and if there's items that you feel worthy of being upgraded or updated and brought to the strategic plan and being brought there, is what we're asking this committee to review.
So here's where I want to make the wheels hit the road. You all have the process now. You all understand how this works. We will have a discussion next month about what the potential changes we might make in regards to what responsibilities this committee has with the strategic plan. You have copies of those plans. The 170 some odd page comp plan is available on the website. Just make a note of it to do some homework in between now and the next meeting. Okay? All right. Moving on.
Could I add one more thing?
Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you. I would encourage everybody to get a copy of the life report. It aligns with a lot of our priorities, and our priorities align with a lot of theirs. Has a lot of good information. In fact, first page, it talks about childcare and the importance of it. So, I mean, I'm not saying, this is a 2019, 2021, I think the new ones are coming out, but I would encourage you to take a look at this, if you can get a copy of it, the life report. So, thank you.
Okay. Last thing I'll add is that if we have those discussions at next month's meeting, that is according to the timeline that has been set forth with updating the strat plan, right?
Yeah, we can follow up that. I intend to do that, and I want to meet with your vice chairs. They were designated as the lead committee member on there, so I'll be contacting them before that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Read the material, bring your thoughts for next month. Okay. Thank you to Vice Chair McEwen, Administrator Leonard, and Chair Gibbs for providing that input. Moving on, 7, policy issues discussion and committee determination of the county board for its consideration. We have none. 8, next meeting date, July 5th, 2022, 3 p.m., assembly room, future agenda items. With the meeting for July 5th, that does come the day after a holiday. I hope that schedule works for everybody, so just make aware of it as you're planning your holiday activities for July 4th. So, okay. A, committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. They are stacking now because I owe Supervisor Oberbeck a discussion on brine, and I owe Supervisor Drabeck a discussion with PFAS. The work doesn't shrink, and I really don't want to do 3-hour meetings, so I will try and insert those as we can throughout the course of the next couple months. I'm aware of them. It's just that we have to have a lot of discussion, and summer is a busy time for the department. B, announcements, requests, correspondence. I will just announce, because with this process, I am trying to be as transparent as possible. I do have a meeting with Greenlight coming up on June 17th. And I believe it's going to be some sort of an update similar to the one that I had last time. I have requested that Greenlight come and present to this committee. This past month, I had reached out to them. They were unavailable to meet with us today. I will continue to reach out to them to try and have them speak to us. So, okay, Marilyn.
Does that planning committee also meet with you at that time, or just you?
We're not going to have the discussion. It's under announcements, request, correspondence. We'll follow up afterwards. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing in here, and you'll get an update of that meeting, obviously. Like I said, I'm trying to get them here in front of you. I want to share as much information, as as I receive. So, okay. Item number 9 would be in order. Motion by Supervisor Seefeld, second by Supervisor Vensky. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff.
This meeting is no longer being